My name is Shannon Gonzalez Miller, and I serve as the Director of Scholarships and Grants in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion at The Ohio State University. I have been invited by the team of the Frank W. Hale Black Culture Center, led by the incomparable and beloved Mr. Larry Williamson, to participate in their innovative video series called Student Stories. The students featured in this video series are from the 2019-2020 class of Martin Luther King Jr. Scholars. The Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Scholarship is awarded to students who are at the end of a remarkable undergraduate career. Their accomplishments include an exceptional academic record, a pledge to service, and a commitment to leadership for the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and the Ohio State University at large. The selecting and awarding of the MLK Scholars could not have happened without the support of and the contributions from the MLK Scholarship Committee and the faculty and staff who generously contribute to this scholarship. Information about how to support the next class of MLK Scholars can be found on our webpage at odi.osu.edu. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Amani Harris. Imani is a moral scholar from Cleveland, Ohio, who earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in May of 2020 from the College of Arts and Sciences English Department with a major, or where she majored in English and had a creative writing concentration. She earned a minor in film studies and women's and gender and sexuality studies. Congratulations, Amani, on being selected as one of the 2019-2020 MLK Memorial Scholarship recipients.
Thank you.
You're welcome. To begin, I wanted to get a sense of kind of your overall reflection of your experience at Ohio State. So, John Bonner, during the spring 2011 commencement speech, said to think about who you want to be before you think about what you want to be. Or it's important to think about who you want to be before you think about what you want to be. How do you relate to this idea with regards to your undergrad experience?
That is a great question. I think for many people, when we grow up and when we're trying to understand what we want to do in the world, the first thing we think is, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a lawyer. And it's interesting when you think about kids, the things they want to be, as much as it's an interest in the position, it usually is an experience they had with an individual person who holds that position. And I think for me, who I want to be was when I really felt like I was finally starting to develop a leadership style that was personal and reflective of who I personally was. I think I wanted to be a culinary food specialist at some point, a producer at some point. Now, who knows what I want to be, and I'm okay with saying that too some days. And I think the reason I'm okay with that is because I'm starting to genuinely like who I am becoming. And I think that type of mindset, to be interested in more of that who instead of what, came from seeing these amazing who's. One of them being you, of course, Shannon, always, who I met at the later half of my college career. But I don't know if I'd ever be able to do your job, but I would always want to be like you in certain types of ways. Professor Aldama in the department, who teaches Latinx comics and movies. I didn't know if I liked comic books growing up, but when I met him, I said, I like him a lot. I like how he cares about students and makes students feel seen. And I said, maybe I won't be a professor, but if I can make people feel seen, then maybe I've accomplished something way more important and way more pivotal. And when you grow up working class, you see a lot of who's who hate their what's, but the who's are such great and vital. And my mother is an administrative assistant. I could not imagine that type of lifestyle because of all the labor it takes to balance other people's lives over your own. But I love who she is as a person. And I would never say I would want to be my mother, because my mother is a phenomenal human. And I think in a society that puts so much value on our what's, it's important for us to develop those individual who's. What makes you who you are outside of that position? Because I think beyond a city that, beyond a state of capitalism, we should be able to get to the who's, and we should be able to think about it beyond these very constructed positions and models and roles. And I think that's pivotal to my experience, because I switched majors many times, and it was more about me figuring out who I was. And by the end of it, I got a 3.9 GPA, which was beautiful, but having that ability to look in the mirror at the end of a very unconventional senior year ending and say, this wasn't what I wanted, but this is exactly who I want to be at this moment. And I think that's what has always mattered to me. So that's kind of how that relates to me.
Wow, that's profound, Imani. So can you talk a little bit more about how the end of your senior year changed or influenced the who and the what?
Yeah. I haven't had a lot of chances to talk to all of my friends, but I have a very large balcony, which allows me to kind of have very distant hangouts. And I was speaking to one of my closest friends, Donovan Hampton, who was awarded this last year, very deservingly. And we were just kind of talking about how we are very eclectic people. We're poets, we're writers, we're people who have always been like, let's go against the grain, let's be all about social justice. And I think we realized when everything was taken away from us that we said didn't matter, like graduation, like senior crawl, and all of those very experience, and we were looking at what that meant. We always said those things didn't matter to us. We said they would never change it, but they hurt us in certain ways. And having to grieve those experiences was extremely challenging, because it very much troubled the who of like, I've always said I don't care about these things. It's just a degree. It's just this. And the minute me as a first generation student got to that point, I was like, oh, I have to practice what I'm preaching, and I have to live and embody what I'm saying are the methods of what I want to do in my theories for people. And I'm like, oh, this is extremely hard. The who and the what is extremely hard. They're sometimes inextricably connected. And I think that was the moment where I said, if I'm going to be the person that I'm saying that cares about being adaptable, who cares about less the degree and more about the merit of the learning, then I can't let grief be that thing is dead, gone, it's over. I didn't graduate because I didn't have a ceremony. It can't be that. I have to find a type of reconciliation that is personal, that is indicative of my who experiences, and less about the what. Like, I have this degree, which is this beautiful what, but I have this very mosaic experience that made that degree what it was. And to only look at it as that was the ceremony I missed, I think it invalidates all of the many ceremonies and celebrations I've had along the way in the journey. And I think having that ripped up under me, I don't want to make it seem like it's beautiful, because so many people have lost extreme things, people, jobs, opportunities. But at the same time, I think the way it has centered my focus of what I want to do in terms of, I just want to be a great person, and I want to fight for things beyond I don't know what this world is going to look like. And I think if we want to look at the world and we want to say, this is exactly what it should look like, we have to ask, well, who are we? And what do we care about? Because if they're connected, we must break them apart to make them still make sense. And I think they should always be connected. I think if you are a great, wise, creative person, your job should be a great, wise, creative person. And that should be your what. And I think having this situation trouble all of these other what's, it made us kind of say, maybe we should find a way to make these more congruent, so that all of these things that we say are important to us, people having places to live, places to eat, places to learn, places to love, ways to love, if those things matter, it can't be based on what's that clearly can be stripped away from us at any point because of COVID-19, because of racial injustice. We have to be better who's. And that was important for me early. Like, to have that happen at the end of my year, I think was very poetic, to say the least. Very poetic.
Right. So thinking about then what you said, how did who you care about or what you care about shift, like when we think about the beginning of your career, and then the end of your career and the peaks and valleys in between. And then what about who you are helped you to sustain yourself through the grieving process of losing that last semester that you had anticipated or expected to be a particular way. And then, like you said, it was snatched away from you.
Yeah. I think at the beginning of my freshman year, I came in as a sociology major. And I'm from inner city Cleveland. As far as I could conceptualize, if you want to fix social problems, you do sociology. It's like, you want to help people, you be a doc. Like, it's just, we get our schema is just so this stuff. And those what's, that's how they naturally kind of form. And I think for me, I was like, yep. And I did great. Like almost 4.0 in sociology for 2 years. But I think at some point I was like, I'm learning about the what of these issues. And I have no idea who I am as a person who is also affected by these issues. As a Black queer woman, like I am affected by these things, but I'm learning about them in a way that's so not attached to who I am. And I think really the change happened when I did take Professor Aldama's intro to comic book studies, or like taking that type of environment, because the minute I met him, I was like, I think I want to do English. I don't know. I think this would be fun. And I think that was the switch. I knew I wanted to do creative writing, but you can't do creative writing without English. And I said, Black people don't do English. We don't understand. I don't know Brit Lit. I don't know these, like, none of these things were tangible to me as someone growing up with a huge literacy issue in our communities. I won't say illiterate. And I said it once at a poetry showcase and was corrected. But I wouldn't say my community was illiterate. I think the world has adapted and formed languages that makes ours so unable to communicate and translate. And it makes these power dynamics around who knows what and who doesn't. And I think having that experience with him, where he kind of came into this classroom and he really embodied what it means to be an equal with your students. We're in Gateway and we're in this big lecture hall, and he's walking around the first day, every day since, introducing himself to a new student in a 200-person lecture. I said, there is something that can be done, and having those conversations with him and really starting to get into my writing and to understanding who I was. And I would say the way that changed, I would love to say it was me and about me, but I think it's when I tapped into the communal aspect of things, that's when it all started to make sense. When everything started to fall apart even before graduation. I think when you meet people like you, Courtney Johnson, these people who dedicate their lives to service and to serving other people, and who don't see their life as separate from other people's lives. It's never about them choosing. When you choose yourself, you choose other people naturally when you care about other people and see yourself connected. And I think the minute I kind of connected to that thought, I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to figure out who I am. I have to tap into something bigger than me, because this can't just be about me. That's what the world wants. They want me to go to college. They want me to get a degree. They want me to leave my community. They want me to be about me. And I don't want that. I think I've always thought I did. I wanted to stop being in dangerous environments. I wanted to learn. I wanted to do these things. And the world had taught me I had to leave my community to do that. And I think when I came to Ohio State and met people like you all, and it was like, oh, ODI, all these people who are connected to ODI. And they were like, no, we do this together. Like, this is how we get through this. I think it changed everything, because I lost my degree, but I didn't lose my family. I didn't lose my friends. I didn't lose my community. I didn't lose my writing. I'm doing better writing. Even though COVID happened, I had more time to read and engage in my personal growth. And I think that's what has to happen. We have to do the personal work. And I think that personal also has to be attached to this communal understanding of who you are with other people. And I think ODI, with people like, again, you, Courtney Johnson, and I'm saying the names because it's important to say you all's names, because I don't think it's fair to only say ODI. Because that is, again, a community of what, but still, you all are amazing who make up that entity. I hate when everyone's in the office of diversity and inclusion. Those people who are running this office of diversity and inclusion are so phenomenal, and getting the opportunity to work with you all, I see it. And I think that has to be it. You all are working for what, but you are amazing who's. And I really think that was what kind of shifted that, is building those relationships and stop seeing myself as the only thing that could progress and the only thing that could go forward. It's all of us, or it's none of us. because that's how it is always going to be. So thank you and everyone and OTI for being my who's and my what's and my everythings. Just thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Imani. It's been wonderful spending your last year with you and getting to know you and experiencing the highs and lows with you. So in this, so I hear this compassionate, this really deep compassion that you carry that influences or grounds you in who you are. So, and based on what you described, in the personalization or the humanizing experience of your undergraduate career, you were also, though, involved in everything under the sun.
Yes.
You were just not sitting around writing poetry.
I wish. Some days I wish.
Yeah. So share a little bit about how this deep sense of compassion that you have, this deep sense of who you are, and your understanding of where you come from influenced and shaped the choices you made around what you chose to participate and how it influenced your leadership in those positions. Because you weren't participating, you took leadership roles in that. So I assume it will reflect your how you characterize yourself as a leader, but I wanted you to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's important to add the very personal context of I'm a middle child. So all of the things that are assumed about middle childs assume I take on that personal burden of, and I'm a middle child of two siblings we're all 1 year apart. So we are stair steppers, and it's very easy to just be lost in the pack at times. And that mindset, it's always been the same. But I think that's a big question in terms of how compassion shapes it. I think when I came to OSU, I don't know if I wanted to be a leader. I don't really know. I think I had the very forward-thinking mind of, if I'm going to get this degree, I could do these extra things to make my experience great, but they're for the purpose of building my resume and and it took about 1 semester of doing that type of work and draining myself and just being like, I can't do this. I can't give anything else. And I think the thing that broke me was the beginning of my second semester of college. I lost my grandmother. And grief again comes up in the process of what that takes. I think that was the moment where after a whole semester of that type of mentality, which I might have started again within the second semester if it wouldn't have happened in January, I kind of had to stop and say, wait, am I being who my grandmother would have wanted me to be? This very compassionate, giving, loving woman who gave everything she had to people. Am I going to make her proud in the trajectory that I'm going right now of having this just like, I'm getting 4.0s, great. I'm getting this, great. Like, and all of those irrelevant things are starting to mean everything to me. And I think that was the moment where I really got kind of picked up and supported by Courtney Johnson, ODI, but the Department of Social Change too. I worked with first generation. So this was really interesting for me because my father is incarcerated, and that is something that impacts my life also. And thinking about the grief happening, thinking about also not having a father in my life at the time, and then getting into this new phase of, okay, what does this look like? I have to keep going, right? I have to keep trying. I have to keep pushing. I have to prove that I am enough. I have to prove this won't break me. Like, this can't break me. And I think I would say Jack Brandel, who is MSP, he's led Buckeye Reach, which is a program in Circleville Juvenile Correctional Facility that works with incarcerated young men with mentorship. And it was the love I didn't know I needed. And I think what made it so important was it was the love I didn't know I could give while I was hurting. And I didn't know that love moved that way and in a reciprocal process. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this program where I mentor kids. And I knew it was going to be a great experience for my resume or for these other things. But when I went in, I realized how much I needed that space and how much me working with those guys, as much as I gave them in that experience, they gave me so much more. And they saw me in ways that I wasn't seeing myself at the time. And sometimes they read me for filth. They were just like, Imani, you are ridiculous today. Like, you're pushing us too hard. Like, we're humans. Like, yes, we need to change, but like, relax. And then when they started to push me and say, you start sharing about your experiences, you start sharing about what's hurt you, you start telling us things too, because this is how this is going to happen for us. We're going to learn together. I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is what family and support is like. And I think it really broke me to be like, I'm not being who I say I want to be. And it's showing in all the things that I'm doing, but people are still seeing me and they're forcing me to see myself. And I think that's what made me kind of the leader that I wanted to be. I wanted to help people see themselves. I didn't want to be the person who led everything anymore. I was like, I don't want the responsibility with little of the purpose. Like, that's not fun. Like, that's just thoughtless, mindless, dehumanizing work to push yourself in a way where you are not attached to who you are and what you care about anymore. Like, when you can't even recognize yourself and people have to start telling you who you are because you don't see it anymore. And that's what leadership and community should be. It should be circular learning. It should be, we are all bouncing and processing this life, our whole lives, and we come together in this space right now to try to make it make sense and to give each other compassion and grace and opportunity. And everyone is bringing something. No one has to do anything. They are enough. They are bringing a whole life of experiences that are worthy. And that's Maurice. That is Maurice Stevenson from Comparative Studies speaking through me. But I think that that type of idea was very much cemented when I fell, when I broke, when I was at my weakest. People said, you're enough. And yeah, Imani, you're not doing the best job in terms of giving people grace and compassion, but it's because you're not giving it to yourself. And that's how leaders should be. You should be so self-reflective and so gracious to the people you are working with, because I don't think there's such thing as a leader above people. And I think with Buckeye Reach and that experience with those young men, I learned that leadership isn't linear. It isn't hierarchical. It should be communal. It should be together. And I think that was always something that was important to me as I moved forward. And that was the first experience I had. And I think it changed my life. So I'm just going to keep being thankful for those people. So Jack Brandel and for Buckeye Reach and the Department of Social Change and all the work they do. So I would say that was what changed and made that compassion move into the action of leadership and what that means for me.
So just to make sure we give credit. So Professor Aldama, or Frederick Aldama, is a professor in Department of English.
Yes.
And Maurice Stevens is a professor, assistant professor, and he's not an assistant professor. He would not be happy with that. He's an assistant professor in comparative studies.
Yes.
So, and Maurice talks about the wisdom being in the group, within the group.
Yes.
And it doesn't lie necessarily, or we can only learn and grow when we hear from everyone in the group, which is a practice that I know carries out in the classroom. So that seemed to resonate with you in terms of understanding that as a leader, it's important that everybody participate in some capacity and it's not a top-down experience.
For sure. Yeah.
So that approach led you to have some very high visibility engagement at Ohio State. So John, and we could talk about what you did with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and your participation and leadership with ODI, but let's start big and then we'll get small. So your big visible leadership positions and participation positions were with the Senior Honorary Sphinx.
Yes.
Also with being on the homecoming court.
Yes.
Last year's homecoming court. So talk about that a little bit, Imani. What led you to that and how does that influence who you are? How that experience influence who you are?
It definitely applies to the work, push. And then I got to my senior year and I said, I just want to be seen for a second. I just want to see if people will like engage. And I think when I started applying for those things, I didn't really know what I was going to get out of them. I knew a few people who were kind of on them from ODI, from my various involvements in Ohio Union Activities Board. And like, I knew who these people were, but I was like, I don't know, let's see what happens. Worst comes to worst, I'm not qualified and they say I won't be on it. Okay, cool. I don't know what it is anyway. So that works. And that's always been my mindset. Who knows? But yeah, I think the way I was thinking about those experiences was because of their visibility. they cannot be as impactful. There's no way, because if everyone is interested in them, that must mean that they're fueling some purpose that might be problematic or assigned things. And of course, as someone who identifies as queer and maneuvers spaces in certain ways, I think for homecoming court, for it to be a very binary system as it was last year, I was like, I don't know if this is what I am going to enjoy. I don't know if they're going to pick someone like me. I'm not wearing a dress. I'm probably going to wear a tux with my partner who's also wearing a tux. And I'm going to look good, and that's what it's going to be. And that's how it's going to happen. But for that particular experience, homecoming court, it was a 180. I think I think those things taught me that with these, I have very avant-garde, eclectic beliefs. As you can kind of see, people don't very much like align all the time with the ideas that I have, even though there are communities who do. But mainstream Eurocentric society doesn't. These are very indigenous, very tribal beliefs in terms of African tribal ritualistic beliefs that like community or all these things. So I'm like, there's no way that this type of widely celebrated homecoming court experience is going to be anything like that. And then it kind of was. And I was like, oh. And I think what happens with social justice leaders, with people of color who are pushing and pursuing for social change, at least in my experience, is we tend to kind of overlook celebration moments like that, where it's like the purpose is for you to just have people see you, acknowledge what you're doing, and be thanked, because you need that, because you're so gracious and so giving to other people. I want to thank everyone because I believe that it took a village to raise me, and I thank my village every day. But at the same time, I do things too. Like, I am also an agent of my own life and change and all of these things. I don't passively believe that the world just happens to me. I think I also happen to the world. And I don't think that without those type of experiences, that aren't the validator. Like, I went in saying, if they don't do it, I'm still great. Cool. But like that moment of, no, you're great, but you also, we think so too. With all of the beliefs that you believe are so different from yours, we see that you are still, like, you're still, they really taught me to just sit and say, you are enough, Imani. You're enough. You don't have to think about anything else. You are enough. And in this moment, we celebrate you. We celebrate what you did. And that's, like, in that moment, it is one of the most fulfilling experiences for people to see you, people who look like me, who are from these very different environments, to see someone like me and just be able to have that moment of engagement. I saw the reciprocity of all of it. I saw the people who got me to this point, and then I saw, when you're riding around in the parade, you see all the people that you're going to impact too. And then to see so many people I love and care about from ODI on the homecoming court this upcoming year, to see that homecoming court heard some of the cries of the issues with the binary system that they have, and now there are non-binary people on this upcoming homecoming court, and they don't have partners. Yes, they don't have partners. Like, they have social, like, there's a bunch that's going on right now to say that me being there, I wasn't just there. I happened to that space. Like, they learned and they were shifted, and it happened back and forth. So I think those moments, it's hard to embrace those moments where you get celebrated when you're adopting the mindset of serving. But serving is all about recognizing, and serving is all about how we show love, how we give love and put action into love. And it would be irresponsible to say, after you've given love and you've put action into love, you don't deserve it back. That's not what I preach. That's not what I tell people that I work with and mentor. So I have to live by that politic. And yeah, no, I was like, I deserve to be loved. I deserve to be very cute in my suits, both of them. They were beautiful. I deserve to be seen and to be appreciated. And my mother got to come up and see me be seen by all of these people. She had no idea. I'm an introvert. So she's like, you talk to people here? And I'm like, yep, Mom. I have all these friends. I have people who are showing up. Like, I have a big, like, blown up fat head that Sphinx made for homecoming court for me. Like, of my face just blown up, because that's what they do for us who end up on homecoming court too. And it's just like, I said, I feel seen. For a day, I feel seen and I feel celebrated. And I have to live by the idea that I deserve to be celebrated. And I deserve, just because I breathe, I deserve to be celebrated. Beyond just doing the great things, because I deserve that. And that was the moment of, don't say anything else, buy your suits, get pretty.
Yes.
and just be celebrated for being
It's your
right
scarlet
now.
and gray.
Yes. So I'm so thankful for Homecoming Court, and Sphinx brought me you, and then also it brought me so many other people that are just, we're family, and you don't know no one knows what Sphinx is, and we're never going to tell people what it is, but it's this, it's a senior honor society.
Yeah, right.
What we do intricately, we
Yes.
build community amongst each other. And I didn't know I needed that. I didn't know I needed all of the super involved students to come together and say, hey, we're all people and we need a community of support too. We've done enough up to this point, and now there's this, we're just here to be with one another and to learn and to grow and to do these things. And it was like, those were just my you are enough moments, and everyone deserves those. Everyone.
Yeah. Yes, it was great and an honor for me to be on the Sphinx Court with you, and to be able to share that experience as one of the faculty and staff that was chosen to be, what's our role? An honorary member.
Yes.
Okay.
They're gonna yell at us if we don't.
I know. It was your moment.
I also was the vice president of Sphinx.
Right.
Just a sidebar. I forgot about that because it was so circular. I didn't even think about myself as the leader of it, but I also was one of the vice presidents of Sphinx. Ooh. Yes.
Yes. So you were, and everybody in Sphinx has a pretty active role, but you were really taking on, again, at an interesting time as you're preparing for the next phase of your career your post-undergrad, to take on that responsibility was, is quite phenomenal. So narrowing the focus a little bit, share with us the ways in which you've taken on leadership roles in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and what that meant to you.
Yeah, the Moral Scholars Program, I think, is important because they made me come to Ohio State. I remember, and I'll just briefly, I'm distinction for Moral Scholars. My distinction interview was extremely, it was a big experience. Like, I hadn't had an opportunity to get a ride to get there, get a hotel room because my mother couldn't afford. Like, it was very hard to make it happen. And I also wasn't interested in Ohio State. And I say that at the end, and I love Ohio State, but I did not like Ohio State coming in because Cleveland, everyone goes to Ohio State. Everyone loves Ohio State. And I'm just like, I have to go somewhere else. I have to be the black sheep who travels to California or somewhere else. And it just was, once I got a full ride, I said, Imani, come on, like, just do it. Like, just go for it. And I think MSP was the big reason of that, because I was very honest in my interview with them, and they were like, we want you because you're honest about what you don't like, what you want to change. And for that to be, again, celebrated was important. So coming in, I very much had the mindset of, they saw me and they supported me and celebrated me. So I have to reciprocate that. I have to do something. And I think what I loved about the Moral Scholarship Program is I never felt like it was a mandatory requirement to do it. It felt like people were engaging in this work, and I wanted to engage in this work. So naturally, we engaged in the work. Like, and it just felt so natural, not performative, just very much we care, we do this, we support each other, and that's that. Like, that's pretty much what it is. So I was in the Moral Scholars learning community for my first and second year, which was a phenomenal experience for me, someone who, just to be honest and frank, I think certain politically correctness comes from access to the knowledge and the language to know that, like, something is offensive or not offensive, and I was in a very concentrated environment where the people love each other, but we don't use the words that everyone has now adopted as the right word. Nobody says transphobic in the hood. We don't say that. And it isn't because we don't love trans people. We just don't know that that's what we're supposed, like, we don't know. Those languages and those words were made in these ivory towers of academia. No matter how important they are for our communities, they weren't words that I knew. And I think MSP gave me the grace to learn and say, you are not transphobic. You're not all these things because you don't know. You're all these things if you don't care to know. That's when it starts to become a thing. But when you want to know and you are engaging in it, and I was loved into learning all of these beautiful things, and now I know all the things, and I still have all the things to learn back, but that environment was very much an ecosystem of learning and grace and failing and learning and grace and failing and over again. And it was almost ritualistic, all the parts of yourself that shed in that type of environment and how you get to who you are at the core, because it's not required, but it's required because we're all doing it. Like, it's required. Like, it's a community norm that we're going to share and learn. And I think that environment led me to be a mentor my second year for the Creative Expressions and Communications team. And it was mentoring MSP first year students who were interested in creative arts and things like that. So I got about 6 or 7 students to mentor. And that was, again, another engaging opportunity that just made me feel kind of connected to the community part and see myself giving back as I'm getting things at the same time. And then I also was on the advisory council for 2 years for the Moral Scholars Program. And the Student Advisory Council is responsible for being a liaison between the students' needs and the senior, like the staff that is happening with MSP. So how do we have transparency between programming, between like, how do we stay engaged in the students' lives? That was what the goal was for that. And that's what I also served on. And then in terms of the Young Scholars Program, I was an academic success partner for them for 2 years and a peer success leader for 2 years. So working with first generation students as freshmen and then also as high school students coming into their freshman year. That was the role that I was kind of playing for my junior and senior year. And I loved it. I love it. Those students, they are home. They are, like, when I talk to them, they are home. And there's so much intentionality of carrying us together that I've seen myself in other people. And it was beautiful to see myself in Sean Gardner and just all of these, like, he's a phenomenal poet who is a second year now, who's running my club now of Never Let Your Pen Dry. And it just naturally progressed because he was just a phenomenal person. And what are the odds of all the students I could have gotten paired with that was someone I got to work with? So yes, just a lot of opportunities to learn, see myself, and then also see myself reflected in other people and how they've impacted me in the same way. So grateful for those opportunities.
Wow. You must be phenomenal in time management, because to do the academic work that you did and do all of that is just so impressive. So as we come to a close, just 2 kind of quick things. So as we think about, you've kind of talked about the pandemic and that experience, and but I want to kind of be more directive in asking you, when you think about the COVID-19 pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement, what is the question that you most want to ask of this life and of our times right now? What question's coming up for you?
Who are we? And what is freedom to us? What is freedom to us as a collective people? But what is freedom for you as an individual? Because I think collective freedom, should be based off of recognizing each other's humanity. And I don't think the goal should ever be to agree. I don't think we're all going to agree. And I don't like that people are racist. That bothers me. What bothers me more is that there's a system that allows them to perpetuate racist acts against me with no repercussions if they chose to do so. And I think we are focused so much on getting everyone to agree, which is not at all what was intended. And however you understand how we were created to be different, and we were created to live these lives together. So we must see ourselves as connected, and we must see that, but also not ignoring difference, but seeing difference and intricacies of difference. You can't care about Black Lives Matter and not care about women. You can't care about Black women and not care about Indigenous women and Latinx women. You can't care about, you just can't care about queer people and continue to commit these violent acts against us. You can't care about trans rights and you don't care about what happens to trans women. Like, you can't do those things. And like, for us, if you care about Black rights, if you care about all of these rights, you care about how they all intersect, because they must at some point. Because I embody so many identities in one body, I have to see them as connected. But for so many other people, when you have these surges of people saying justice for Black Lives Matter, but there are significantly more Black women who are not Black trans women, all of these intricacies that we're missing, we have to ask who we are as a collective, but we also have to ask individually what that means for us. And we have to recognize everyone's individual conditions for their freedom, because trans women have specific freedoms that they're fighting for. And though I may never understand them fully, that doesn't matter. I or anyone else should not have a right as a cis person to enact any violence on trans women's bodies. And that's what we need to understand. There should be no power for me to do that. There should be no system that allows me to do that perpetually. And I think that's what we have to see. I think coming to this widespread agreement is a goal that I don't think I even fully want. I don't think that I want people to I want people to understand me, and we don't have to have these miscommunications. But I think when we miscommunicate, we communicate something so different and so much more powerful. A conversation where everyone agrees is a horrible conversation. It is very flat. It is, yes, yep, But a conversation where you say, that's not really what I feel. And seeing my mother at 50 years old, we're having those conversations, and she's saying, no, you're right. Like, I'm seeing what you're saying and how this space is allowing us to see each other and hear each other. We have to ask, who are we? What is freedom? And it cannot be contingent on anything besides our humanness. We should be allowed to be free because we are. Black people should not be killed, not because we are phenomenal doctors and lawyers. The homeless Black man on the street deserves not to be killed. He is contributing to our society. He is here just because he is, and that means we should protect him. No conditions, no XYZs, but we shouldn't say that that's because we all agree. That's the one thing we should agree on. No one should be allowed to be, that's it. Once we agree on that, we can move forward with the intricacies and all of that, but let's agree that you don't have the right to tell anybody who is valuable. You can't tell people what they contribute or don't contribute. You just have to accept their humanity, and let's start there. And then we can move on. So who are we? What is freedom? Yes.
Well said, Imani, well said. So essentially honoring people's differences is, and understanding not only the honoring, but that it's an essential part of us growing together as a community.
Yes.
I think what I'm hearing you saying, right?
For sure.
And then looking at all the ways, the intersections in terms of class, gender, and then we get into all kinds of colorism and all that.
Yes, all the intricacies.
Yes. Complicates the conversation. So having graduated, as we close, what has your attention right now? What are you up to, Imani?
Well, no, I'm currently serving as ODI's first ever Gap Year Fellow for the department, which is phenomenal. For the office, it's phenomenal. It really is giving me the opportunity to focus on my graduate applications, because I intend to apply for MFA programs, Masters of Fine Arts and Poetry. And I also plan to apply to PhD programs for English American Studies. And I'm going to let fate take hand and just do what it's going to do. But I was awarded the phenomenal opportunity to do this in that time that I'm applying, which is phenomenal. And to kind of just work with students and work with the staff and just kind of figure out how we can better show ODI in this very tragic moment, because our students are doing phenomenal things. And I think it's been beautiful to just kind of step back and say, you don't have to be Imani Sphinx homecoming. You just get to support the Royas. You get to support the Slides. You get to support the Jasons, the Kilos, all these phenomenal students who are doing just wonderful work. And I love that. And I love that nurturing and that love. So that is where my attention is. It is, how are we going to love, and how are we going to walk by faith and not by sight? Because this is extremely difficult to look at. But we are dreaming the world that we will have. And you have to believe in your dreams more than you believe in any other hierarchy of knowledge. That degree is beautiful, but your dreams are also beautiful. The thing you go to sleep thinking about and the world you see, I want you to know that. I want people to know that that world is possible. And that's what my work right now is. It's just writing and thinking and talking and engaging and staying connected to people. Just letting them know that there is a world out there for us, and we are dreaming it right now, and we are going to act on it. And this is terrible, but it is a year. I think if we could all sit still for a year and we could all respect each other's humanity for a year, the world we can get out of it is going to be so much more beautiful. There's no more going back to normal. There's no going back. We're going forward. And that's what we need to set our sights on. Not We grieve what is gone. We grieve what we do not. And not gone, because nothing's ever fully gone. It's just repurposed into something. Yes, repurposed into something different. But we need to grieve those things we have thought as normal. And we need to rebirth and grow from the ashes of whatever we burn down. We have to ask ourselves what we're going to build in the future. And that's what I want to know. What do I want to build in the future? When everything falls, it isn't about the falling. It's about what we build from it. And I want to build. That's what I'm here for. I want to build and love. And that's what I want. Yeah.
So it sounds like fate stepped in once again for you to kind of create a little bit of a seamless transition so you could continue doing the work that you started as an undergrad, and while you prepare for the next step. So this gap year fellowship is, like you said, seems like an awesome opportunity. Well, I want to thank you for this very enriching conversation, and for your willingness to participate in this video series. So as we come to a close, I would like to offer you the opportunity to give you or to offer the closing remarks for our conversation. So what final things would you like to say?
This is just an individual remark. And I think it's for me to recognize just the humanity of people who are sitting in very low moments. I think I am having beautiful transformations happen, and I'm very spiritually connected and grounded. But for people who are suffering with hard times and they are challenging and they're trying to figure out what is happening in this world, you as an individual are not broken. You may be breaking, you may be burning, but something new is going to come from ashes. Like something new is going to come from that. And you have to believe that, because it isn't the burning, it isn't the breaking, it is what comes. And you coming out of this is enough. You are enough. And I want people to know you are enough, and all of these experiences that you have lost are real, and everything you are feeling is real. And no matter what this world, you turn on social media, it doesn't feel real, but you are real. Your experiences are real and valid, and you are enough. So burn, break, but build.
Powerful message for people as you wonder, like you said, what's your place, and so as we think about that. So thank you, Imani.
Thank you.
A bit of a surprise for you as I reach out.
There's gifts.
There's gifts.
Is this an Oprah moment?
But yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, wow.
So, it is my deep honor to present you on behalf of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, to present you with your plaque.
That is beautiful. I'm just going to just take that as thank you so much.
So we will get this to you. So it says, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion congratulates Amani Harris as a Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Scholar, 48th Annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration, which would have been held on January 21st, 2020, had things worked out. So
thank you.
We will make sure we get this to you. So thank you so much for this productive opportunity to learn about your experience and about who you are, how you love, how you grieve, and your strength that gets you through all of these. So thank you, Imani.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I can't wait to put that up somewhere. I can't. Can't wait.